Right. So today we're going to do a deep dive on this guy,
Yeah.
Andrew Wilkinson. You guys have sent us a ton of stuff.
Yep. Tons of stuff.
Articles, interviews,
Article.
excerpts from his book, Never Enough. From Barista to Billionaire.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot here. So it seems like...
It seems like
yeah,
so.
got a good one.
Yeah, you guys are as fascinated by him as we are.
Yeah, it's interesting because he is definitely somebody who attracts strong opinions.
Yes.
Some people think he's a visionary,
Totally.
a leader in the field,
Yeah.
and other people think he's just a straight-up con artist.
And that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
That is the question. Grifter or gifted?
That's the question.
Let's get into it.
Let's dive in.
Okay.
So where do we even begin with a guy like this?
Yeah.
I think we have to start with his origin story.
Yeah. The myth, the legend.
He claims to have made his first million by 36.
Which is pretty impressive.
Right.
But he started even younger than that. He launched his entrepreneurial journey with a tech news website about Apple products.
Oh, wow.
Back when he was just a teenager.
Okay.
And he boasts about making $250,000 in his first year.
I was mastering the art of instant ramen as a teenager.
Yeah.
So, like,
Totally different.
color me impressed or skeptical.
Well,
What did the sources say about
the sources say...
how he actually pulled this off?
Well, this is where it gets interesting because he loves to talk about the results.
Okay.
But he's a little bit vague on the specifics. Some sources suggest that he capitalized on the early days of the internet by offering website design services to businesses that were eager to establish an online presence.
That makes sense.
And remember, this was before website builders were commonplace.
Yeah, totally.
So there was a real demand for those skills back then.
So he was kind of like a tech-savvy hustler, just like spotting a need and filling it.
Yeah, seeing a hole in the market. Which makes sense given his later ventures, but...
But it also begs the question,
Yeah.
was it pure talent or was there a bit of opportunism mixed in there?
Because let's be honest, not every teenager with coding skills becomes a millionaire.
Exactly. And I think it speaks to a certain entrepreneurial instinct, but it's also worth noting that he was operating in a very specific time and place.
Okay.
The dot-com boom was in full swing.
Yes.
And the barriers to entry in the tech world were much lower back then.
Totally.
So while his success is undeniable, the context is crucial.
Okay. So timing might have played a role, but let's not forget, this guy went on to co-found Tiny, which is a holding company that has acquired or invested in over 70 businesses.
70 businesses. That's not just...
That's a lot.
That's not just luck.
No, absolutely not. We're talking about Dribbble, the go-to platform for designers to showcase their work.
Yeah.
MetaLab, a design agency that has clients like Slack and Facebook Messenger.
Right.
This points to a real knack for spotting potential and scaling businesses.
He knows how to build an empire.
He does.
But some sources are raising a valid point.
Yeah.
Is this phenomenal business acumen?
Right.
Or is he just riding the wave
or is he...
of a booming tech market?
Yeah. Was he just in the right place at the right time with the right amount of capital?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the question.
Was it like actually business smarts?
Yeah.
Or was he just playing the game that everyone else was playing?
I think that's a key question that we need to unpack because acquiring companies, especially in the tech space, became a trend in itself during this period.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he a brilliant strategist?
Right.
Or was he simply playing a game that everyone else was playing?
Yeah. And that leads us to the elephant in the room. The Billionaire label.
Yeah. The big B.
You sent us some sources that cast doubt on whether that title is actually accurate.
Now, a lot of Wilkinson's wealth is tied up in these privately held companies under the Tiny umbrella.
Yeah.
And valuing private companies is notoriously tricky.
Okay.
Unlike publicly traded companies where you have transparent financial information, there's a lot more room for interpretation. And let's be honest, potential exaggeration.
So it's less about concrete assets and more about...
It's more about perceived value.
Perceived value.
Yeah. It's like trying to guess the weight of a hippopotamus based on its shadow.
Okay.
You can make an educated guess.
Yeah.
But it's far from precise.
Okay. I'm starting to see why people are skeptical.
Yeah.
Right?
But didn't Wilkinson himself admit that he's no longer a billionaire?
Yeah.
after a recent stock market crash?
Yes, he did in his book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talks about how this crash significantly impacted his net worth.
Okay.
But he also mentions that 80% of his wealth still comes from Tiny, with the rest from real estate and shares.
Okay. So even if the billionaire status was
right,
a little bit inflated, he's clearly still incredibly wealthy.
Yeah, he's doing all right for himself.
But this begs another question.
Lay on me.
If his fortune is so closely tied to the volatile tech market, is his success really as sustainable as he?
Yeah, is this a house of cards?
Makes it out to be.
Right.
Is it all going to come tumbling down at some point?
That's a question for the ages, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it leads us to one of the most intriguing parts of this whole deep dive.
Okay, let's do it.
Wilkinson's encounter with Charlie Munger.
Oh, my God.
Warren Buffett's legendary right-hand man.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm intrigued.
In his book, Wilkinson describes this almost fantastical meeting with Munger over dinner at his home, where Munger proposes that they merge their companies.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
A merger on their first meeting?
Yeah.
That's a bold move, even for Charlie Munger.
Right.
Like, you think there would be some due diligence, some back and forth, before even considering something that massive.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if Wilkinson's penchant for dramatic storytelling is seeping into...
Is it bleeding in
his recounting of events?
The narrative. You're not alone in thinking that.
Okay.
In fact, we have sources that directly contradict Wilkinson's version of events. For Sparling, Wilkinson's longtime business partner, has a very different recollection of that meeting.
Oh, this is where it gets juicy.
It does.
Okay. What does he say happened?
So according to Sparling, they were initially invited to discuss a succession problem at the Daily Journal, a software company chaired by Munger.
Okay.
So there was no talk of a merger.
Wow.
No grand vision of joining forces.
Okay.
They were there to solve
so it wasn't even
a specific issue.
It wasn't even about Tiny.
It wasn't even about Tiny.
It wasn't even initiated by Munger.
Exactly.
That's a stark contrast.
Yeah.
To Wilkinson's account.
And it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Sparling claims they only pitched the idea of a merger during a second meeting with Munger after writing him a letter outlining their vision for Tiny's.
So two very different versions of the same event.
Right.
Who's telling the truth?
It's like a real-life Rashomon effect playing out.
Yeah.
It's impossible to say for sure without Munger's perspective, unfortunately. But this discrepancy raises a crucial question about how Wilkinson constructs his narratives and uses them to shape his public image.
Okay.
It speaks to this concept of reflexivity that we see throughout his career.
Go break that down for me. I'm not familiar with that term.
So imagine a mirror reflecting an image back at itself.
Okay.
Creating this infinite loop. That's kind of how reflexivity works in this context.
Okay.
It's the idea that Wilkinson's public persona and the stories he tells actually influence and shape his reality.
So he's not just building a business.
Right.
He's crafting a narrative.
He's crafting a narrative.
A carefully curated image that then feeds back into his success.
Exactly. It's a powerful feedback loop.
Okay.
Think about his active presence on social media, especially Twitter.
Yeah.
He's constantly sharing business insights.
Okay.
Cultivating this image of a self-made billionaire with an unconventional approach. He's built a platform and a personal brand that undoubtedly attracts investors.
Right.
And opens doors.
It's like he's hacked the system.
Yeah.
Understanding the power of perception in today's world.
Perception is everything.
Yeah, but the question is, is this genius marketing?
Yeah.
Or is it something more calculated?
Right. Is he genuinely sharing his knowledge? Or using carefully crafted narratives to manipulate perception?
That's the million...
Or should we say billion-dollar question?
Billion-dollar question.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fine line between being a savvy storyteller and embellishing the truth for personal gain. And the Munger story definitely blurs that line.
It makes you question.
It does.
The authenticity behind his actions.
Yeah.
If he's willing to bend the truth about this meeting, what else might he be reshaping to fit his narrative? Exactly. And it's not just about the stories he tells.
Okay.
We also need to consider his actions, especially his philosophy of anti-goals.
Yeah, this whole idea of focusing on what you don't want in life.
Yeah.
And actively avoiding it.
Exactly.
On the surface, it sounds empowering.
It does.
Like taking control of your destiny. But I think as we dig deeper, it raises some interesting questions.
It does.
Right.
So one of Wilkinson's primary anti-goals is never feeling obligated to do something he doesn't want to do. Essentially, he prioritizes autonomy and freedom above all else.
Which makes sense, considering he's built a life where he calls the shots right.
Right. He doesn't answer to anybody.
No demanding bosses. No dealing with like the mundane aspects of running a business.
Exactly.
But is this anti-goal philosophy truly a path to fulfillment?
Right.
Or is it a luxury?
Or is it
afforded only to the wealthy?
A privilege.
Yeah.
That's the crux of it.
Right.
It's much easier to avoid things you dislike when you have the financial resources to create distance from them.
Totally.
Not everyone can afford to simply opt out of the aspects of life they find unpleasant.
And remember, even Wilkinson admitted his billionaire status was fleeting, taking a hit after the stock market crash.
He did.
So maybe that freedom that he preaches isn't as absolute or attainable.
As absolute as he suggests.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
His experience highlights the inherent instability of wealth. Even for someone as savvy as him. It makes you wonder how those anti-goals hold up when your financial security is suddenly shaken.
Exactly. And it brings us back to the core question.
It does.
Of this deep dive.
Yeah.
Is Wilkinson a visionary who's figured out a unique path to success and fulfillment? Or is he simply playing a different game?
Yeah.
One where the rules bend to his advantage?
That's the question.
Yeah.
To answer that, we need to examine his actions, not just his words. And one of the most telling aspects of his career is his aggressive acquisition strategy with Tiny. He's built an empire by gobbling up businesses. But the sources paint a mixed picture of his motives.
So he's got this massive portfolio of companies, but what's the driving force behind it all?
What is it about?
Yeah, is it about like nurturing these businesses and seeing them flourish, or is it about something else?
Well, that's the heart of the grifter-gifted debate, isn't it?
Right.
Some sources suggest that Wilkinson's acquisitions are less about passion and more about financial engineering. They argue that he's essentially flipping companies, buying them low, pumping up their valuations, and then
either merging them with publicly traded companies or selling them for a hefty profit.
So it's less about building a lasting legacy and more about...
It's more about playing the market.
Yeah.
Maximizing returns.
Playing the game.
Yeah.
But
it's worth noting that Wilkinson has only sold 2 out of the 70-plus companies that he's been involved with. He seems to prefer holding on to them, building them up, and integrating them into the Tiny ecosystem.
He even said one time that, like, dealing with private equity groups and hedge funds was a major hassle. So it sounds like he
prefers
to operate on his own terms. Which kind of aligns with his anti-goal philosophy.
Exactly.
But this also raises a red flag for me. If he's... So...
What's the red flag?
Averse to outside scrutiny. Does that suggest a lack of transparency?
It's a valid concern.
When you operate largely in the realm of privately held companies, there's less public accountability. It's harder to track the financial dealings to assess the true value of the assets. And that lack of transparency can fuel speculation and skepticism.
Especially when you consider the inconsistencies surrounding his billionaire claim. He told Bloomberg that he went through financial due diligence to join the Giving Pledge, which requires a minimum net worth of $1 billion.
Exactly.
But then he publicly states that he's no longer a billionaire. It just doesn't
It's a perplexing contradiction.
Yeah, right.
It's almost as if he's playing a game of smoke and mirrors with his wealth, using it to elevate his status and open doors while simultaneously downplaying it to avoid scrutiny.
It's a carefully crafted image.
It is.
That's for sure. And it's hard not to admire the skill involved.
It's pretty impressive.
He understands the power of perception, of creating a narrative that draws people in.
Right.
Remember that story about how he secured a major investment from Bill Ackman simply by having lunch with him?
Classic Wilkinson. Yeah. He's a master networker, leveraging his charm and his carefully curated persona to attract powerful allies and secure lucrative deals.
But is it all just a facade?
Is it all just smoke and mirrors?
Yeah. Is there genuine substance behind the flash and the
carefully worded sound bites?
Yeah.
That's the question we've been wrestling with throughout this deep dive.
Right.
And frankly, there's no easy answer. Yeah. We've seen evidence pointing in both directions.
Right.
He's undeniably a gifted entrepreneur with a knack for spotting opportunities.
Right.
And building businesses, but he's also a master manipulator of perception.
Right. Someone who understands the power of storytelling and uses it to his advantage.
Yeah, it's like he's this walking paradox, embodying the complexities of success in the digital age.
Yeah.
He's built an empire, amassed a fortune,
right,
and achieved a level of freedom most people only dream of. But the path he's taken is shrouded in ambiguity.
Yeah.
Raising questions about the true cost of his success.
And that's the takeaway for you, dear listener.
Yeah.
As you navigate your own path in this world, remember that success is rarely a straight line.
Right.
It's often messy, complicated, and filled with contradictions.
Yeah, don't be swayed by the surface-level glamour or the carefully crafted narratives.
Exactly.
Dig deeper, question the motives, and look for the inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Because in a world where charisma and controversy collide, it's up to you to discern the visionaries from the con artists. Are they genuinely changing the world or just cleverly lining their pockets?
Ooh.
That's the question we'll continue to explore in future episodes of Grifter or Gifted.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
Yes.
That's all for today's deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Andrew Wilkinson.
We would.
Is he a visionary leader or a master manipulator?
Let us know.
Share your perspectives and let's keep the conversation going.